Hello, I'm Joshua Noble, and this is a little training video I was making for 3ds Max. Today we're going to make a Lego man. We're going to start working on his head though. Let's make this in a spline modeling, so let's go to our create, down the shapes, and we're going to select a line here, and we're going to want to go into our front view by hitting F. There we go, and actually let's use a rectangle instead of a line. So just drag and click there. There we go. And we want to switch this to an editable spline so we can control this, a little more control. So go down to our modifiers list, and we'll select editable spline. So now this is an editable spline, we can click segments, and then we can grab both these segments in the middle of this rectangle. So now those are both selected, we're going to right click to go to our quad menu, and we're going to go to divide. Basically, we're going to add verts in the middle of these segments. There we go. So now we got verts in the middle of these. We're going to delete one side of this rectangle. I'm going to delete the right side here. So I'm going to click my verts here by selecting verts under my selection up here. And actually I didn't delete it, so let's get our segment and delete that. There we go. We're going to add some extra detail up here. So go back to our verts. We're going to go to right click. We're going to go to refine and add some extra verts at the top here. Okay, there we go. Okay, and we want to switch these verts into corners. Basically, if you move these verts, it'll make the segments between each vert act differently. So if we switch this to corner, these segments are not going to bend if we move these verts up. Here, I'll show you what I mean. So switch these back to Bezier and move them up. And as you can see, they're starting to bend. This is not actually what we're looking for right now, so let's switch those back to corner. There we go, and drag these up. And let's just move these verts over a little bit here. We're just going to make the base shape of the top of the Lego guy's head here. The reason that I decided to use spline modeling on this here, we're going to make the base shape of this spline, and then later on we're going to use a modifier which is going to spin the spline in the circle and making a geometry with it. Okay, there we go, and now we're going to go to refine and do the same thing on the bottom. There we go. Let's actually make sure we put 4 in here this time. Select all those and turn them to corner. There we go. Grab those 2 in the middle and bring them down. And let's bring it down a little more, and then drag them to the sides. So you get a shape like this. There we go. We could have done it with box modeling too. I'll show that here in a minute, what box modeling is. But I decided to use a spline because I feel you have a little more control on certain things with spline modeling. Okay, so now we got that. Let's add a vert in the middle of this segment here. So let's grab that and hit divide. So now we got our vert there. And so now I'm going to grab these 2 corner verts at the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to round the corners here. So we're going to go down to a little fillet thing here, and just drag up on a little slider to get the shape something like this. And we actually didn't need that extra vert in the middle, so we can just delete that. There we go. Okay, so now let's just move these over just a little bit more. Get into the shape that's a little more of a I want. Move it down a little bit. Bring that over. Oops, grab the wrong vert. Let's undo that. Undoing is Control-Shift-Z. Or Control-Z. Sorry, I was thinking about a different program. Okay, so now I went to my modifiers list and looked up lathe. You can type in LA and you can find lathe that way, or just scroll through the list and find it. And so the way these modifiers work, they work in a stack. And if we want to change this, we go down through the stack and change it in the different modifiers. So I just went back to my editable spline, move my stuff, and then I went back to lathe. Sometimes it doesn't update in the viewport. Here we go. So we see the geometry, and it's not quite what I'm looking for. So back to my editable spline, move those over. Okay, there we go, getting close. We're going to rotate up. You can either do this by going down to the bottom right corner and looking for the little circle for rotate, or you can hit Control R, or if you want to, you can hold down Alt and mouse wheel to rotate. So now we're just going to click and drag up. And as you can see, that's not what we're really looking for at the top. So let's go back to our editable spline, move some things over, move some of that over, and there we go, it updated. And get a little closer, not close enough. Okay, there we go, getting close. Okay, we're just going to go with that. And as you can see, it's a little hard-edged on this head here. It's not quite as smooth as we want. So we can easily fix this by going to our lathe and our modifier stack, and we're going to go down to where it says segments. And since, there we go, so it's 16, and we actually want to move that up, so you can either do that by using the slider, or you can just type in what you want. And let's just go with 38. There we go. Okay, that's looking better. So now we got our little Lego head here. We're gonna mess around with some of these verts here a little bit. Get something like this. There we go. So now we got his head. We're gonna start working on his body here in a minute. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're going to go top view by hitting T. Now, since we're in there, we're going to go back to our create menu. It's a little star thing up there, and go to our geometry. If you're not already in there, I'm already in shape, so we need to go back to my geometry here in a minute. Okay, there we go. And we're going to click on box. And somewhere right out here, we're just going to click and drag over. And get something like this. Somewhere around here. Okay, so you click once and you click again, and your box is made. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to hold down Shift and drag over the head on the X-axis and get somewhat of a relevant looking here. So I want. Okay, that's going to work. Okay, so you can see the body's not really down as far as we want. It was made on the original plane here. It's not what we're looking for, so we'll just click and drag this down. If you don't have your move modifier, your move translator on, you can just hit W and you'll get to your move here. So we're going to go to our modifiers list, and since this is a box, we have our control and our height. And we're just going to drag it up with a little slider here. Let's go back to modifiers, go on our list here, and we're going to look for edible poly. Okay, so now we got that. We're going to go to our verts, and then we're going to grab our two verts in the corner at the top of each side of this box here. Okay, so we got one corner, and we got our second corner there. And now we're going to go to our scale. It's over here at the top. You can click this, or you can hit R for scale. And we're just going to scale this on the X-axis. Bring those in a little bit. And later on, if it's still a little too big, we can still change it by scaling in the verts. We're going to click on our edges now. So I just clicked on my edges in my selection over my modifiers. And to make sure I got the edges I want, I'm going to go to wireframe mode by hitting F3. And the ones in white are not selected, so we want to make sure they're red. Make sure you don't get the bottom edges. We don't want those selected. So now I hit right click, and we're going to go down to chamfer. And then we're just going to mess with the amount here. Get something like this, and we're going to add some extra edges in there. Make it nice and round on the side. Okay, there we go. This part here is actually box modeling. There we go. And now we're going to select the bottom face by hidden polygon, and then we're going to select the bottom face out of the body here, and we're going to go to right click after we hit our move here. So we go to right click and we go to inset, which is in our little quad menu for our edible poly. And we're just going to mess with the amount here. And as you can see in the corner here, sometimes you have this problem if the corners are rounded. If you go too far on the amount, the verts will start to overlap each other and cause some weird problems you're not going to want later on. You'll have like these little weird artifacts if you start rendering it at, which is pretty much like this face overlapping each other. It's not really pleasing to the eye. So now we got that selected and made. We're going to go to our extrude, and we're going to bring that up. Bring it up somewhat to the top, like this. And we're going to grab our verts and do the same thing we did earlier, and just scale that inside the body here. Just grab those corners. And let's grab our scale and scale that in on the X. Okay, there we go. And as I said before, this part, when I was making the body, is box modeling. We didn't use a spline, we just pretty much use a primitive that was already made and model into a shape we wanted. Which is okay for this part, and if we need to change it, it'll be pretty easy.